Good evening. We are here today to hear the case of Brooklyn Tenants United versus Brooklyn Housing Court. However, before we proceed on this action, I must caution you that this hearing today is not a legal case per se. It's an accurate demonstration of your experiences at Housing Court. So I must extend, on behalf of all of you, our sincere gratitude to our distinguished panels. First, we have the esteemed Brooklyn Borough President, the Honorable Eric Adams. Mr. President, it's with great thanks we all say to you for granting us this privilege to use such an esteemed office to express our issues here this evening. And it speaks volumes to your commitment with your constituents. And I thank you very much. The second speaker this evening you will hear before the case will be Public Advocate Letitia James. Welcome, welcome. Third speaker will be our Deputy Borough President, Deanna Rainier. Welcome. Fourth guest this evening is Assemblyman Walter Mosley. Thank you, thank you. And our fifth honoree this evening is none other than Council Member Antonio Reynoso. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Mr. President, Borough President, the lectern is yours.
We want to get right to the trial, so we'll be brief as possible. And I want to thank all those who are here, my colleagues in government. The reason you are going to see the next 4 years so much being accomplished because you have just a group of people who are in government who really like each other and really enjoy being around each other. We laugh a lot, but we know how to roll up our sleeves and get things done. Our public advocate, our assemblyman, and our council person, and both council members just came in, and District Leader Hamilton, just a good group of people. And we're excited here in Borough Hall. I could not have chosen a better deputy in Diana Rainier. Her husband and I were police officers together. And so now we have a new beat, and it's called the Brooklyn Street. And we're going to do our thing in this borough, in a very real way. One thing that was said, I want to just take a corrective action so you can understand in a very clear manner. This is not my house. This is your house. We are not here to believe the sterilized environment of this beautiful architectural building is something that we hold on to. Diana and I have made it clear over and over again, it is to be used. The carpet in this room should be worn out. The marble should be worn out by the time we finish our 4 years. If the people do not walk past this building and identify it as a symbol of empowerment for them individually and not a symbol of empowerment for me, then we failed in our legacy of what we want to do in the borough of Brooklyn. The doors must be open. I'm tired of going into classrooms, churches, and other places and asking people to raise their hand if they ever visited Borough Hall and they don't raise their hand. This building has been detached from the people, and we want to attach it to the people one more time and let them know this is their house. Lastly, what we're doing today is so important. We used to do, when I was with 100 Blacks in law enforcement who care, we used to do these mock vignettes of telling people what to do when stopped by the police. And we empower thousands of young people so they can know how to respond when police officers interact with them. It is unfair to you, the public, that the first time you come in contact with any formal governmental process, a courtroom, or going down to receive services or interaction with law enforcement, you have to get on-the-job training while you're caught up in the interaction. We need to do this more, and I commend the organizers, all of these banners that I hear. We need to have mock scenarios so you can be prepared by the time you walk into a governmental agency to receive resources. Beforehand, you should know what to expect. Parents should know what to expect when they walk into a classroom to teach, talk to principal. Those who are receiving or seeking social services, from food stamps to WIC to any other services, they should know what to expect so they're not intimidated. The arrogancy of government that when you come to seek services that your tax dollars pay for, people treat you in a level of disdain and disrespect. Not while I'm borough president. That's what the public advocate has been saying for years. That's what her spirit is in Antonio and Walter and Jamani. That is the spirit that's in government now. We are those who believe that the people are first. And we must do the things that's going to make people feel empowered. So welcome to Borough Hall. Welcome to the Borough of Brooklyn, the baddest borough in the baddest city in the baddest country. So I'm the baddest cat alive.
May it please the court.
Proceed.
Judge, first let me apologize on behalf of my clients. As I give this opening statement, my clients have defaced your courtroom with paraphernalia. At the appropriate time, they will remove it at the end.
Okay.
Judge, also let me apologize on behalf of my clients. I know you asked them to refrain from any outbursts, but you know, we happen to be an emotional people, and we like to, you know, dramatize our cause. And so I hope you don't mind, Judge, if we clap from time to time. Okay, Judge? I hope you don't mind.
Your advocacy is noted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you very much, Judge. So, Judge, my opening statement is as follows. It is my position, Judge, that this case is of substantial merit, and that there is sufficient evidence to go forward with a verdict of guilty. That the landlord known as Mr. David Bistricer, who the former public advocate, who is now the mayor of the city of New York, Bill de Blasio, has called him one of the New York's worst landlords. And as a result of that, Judge, allow me to approve my case. First of all, Brooklyn Housing Court has 10 courtrooms, most of them devoted to landlord-initiated actions. But Judge, there is only one courtroom dedicated to tenant-initiating proceedings. So I proved my first case, okay. My first claim. My second claim, okay. My second claim, Judge, if it so please the court and without any objection, 85% of the landlords who come to this court of yours, Judge, are represented by noble and learned counsel. Yet my clients, Judge, if you notice, most of them come in with just their paperwork, just with their bills. They just come in with their friends. They are not represented by noble or learned counsel, and I believe that serves as a disservice to my tenants, Judge. I proved my second case. Judge, my clients, most of them are dual language. You know, they're international. They've got a flavor about them, you know, and they speak a multitude of languages, Spanish being one of them. Yo hablo español?
Poquito.
Okay. So there is a large proportion of unrepresented tenants who have limited English proficiency before your court, Judge. And as a result of that, that puts them at a disadvantage, Judge, when they go up against these powerful interests in the city of New York. And Judge, I would hope that you would take that into consideration, and that would be a burden of proof in your decision to hold the housing court guilty as charged. And Judge, let me also say that the resources to process these tenant cases is somewhat limited. There's not enough information for my clients to present to you adequately on a manner upon which you are accustomed, Judge. They just don't have the assistance to prepare their cases, and I would argue that that puts them at a disadvantage, Judge. And so, Judge, based on all of those reasons, the lack of adequate facilities to accommodate seniors and disabled communities. Judge, you have no idea. I want to thank your court staff. They assisted all of the senior citizens and the disabled members who are here today who represent my clients. They assisted them in getting up the stairs because this building, which is owned by the worst landlord of the city of New York, not designated by me, but by Mayor Bill de Blasio, it's not compliant with ADA, American Disabilities Act, Judge, and I believe that as a result of that, you should hold this landlord guilty. So, Judge, lack of adequate facilities to accommodate seniors, insufficient space to accommodate litigants, deplorable physical facilities, obviously, because a facility owned by Mr. Bistricer, who Mayor Bill de Blasio called the New York's worst landlord, little or no signage advising tenants on how to get assistance, inadequate translation service, the lack of attorneys to assist individuals, most of them who are living at or below the poverty level in the city of New York. And again, all of these courtrooms for landlords and only one courtroom for tenants to initiate actions to describe the horrific conditions in the apartments under which they live. And the fact is, Judge, we do have a housing crisis in the city of New York, and I would note, Judge, that tonight 53,000 individuals are going to sleep in our shelters, homeless. A third of them are children, Judge, who look like the majority of the people in this room, Judge. Judge, I don't see how you can come to any other conclusion but that the court, Brooklyn Housing Court, is guilty as charged, based upon all of the facts that I've put in issue, based on all of the evidence, when you examine all of the evidence that will be put before you, and as a result of, I must say, my brilliant opening statement, that you can only come to one conclusion, that the courts, unfortunately, have disadvantaged tenants and are not doing much to really accommodate their needs, and the justice requires that there be a fair enforcement of the law. And that's what everyone is entitled to, and everyone should be provided as required under the law of the state of New York. And as a result of that clear and convincing evidence, Judge, it appears to me that the courts are guilty as charged.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Borough President.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Honorable Judge, permission to speak?
So granted.
I want to welcome you and many in the audience in this wonderful courthouse, your home. As Borough President Eric Adams has mentioned, this will be the first of many for you to continue to educate all of Brooklynites what is at stake here, our home, our neighborhood, our communities. This is an opportunity for us to represent 2.5 million Brooklynites. This is an opportunity to educate leaders, yourselves, to be charged with the duty of being stewards of Brooklyn, to educate others in what is necessary in Brooklyn Housing Court. Today, tomorrow, we will change the face of what is Brooklyn Housing Court and in the mannerism it treats every Brooklynite, and how it will continue to proceed in fair and just laws being implemented and executed in the city of New York. I commend every individual who is here with us today, our public advocate, our council members, our assembly members, every housing organizer who has spent their lifetime making sure that they have always stood on the forefront of the voiceless, the lost, the unsure. This is an opportunity for us to continue what is the housing advocacy work that is never finished. It only evolves. It repeats history. I say that from experience. As a young girl of 8 years old, I experienced being the translator to my parents in housing court. Up until the age of 15. 5 of those years were just spent in housing court trying to navigate a court system my parents knew nothing of, coming as immigrants from the Dominican Republic, despite being here from the 1960s till the 80s. And this is the story of many of families in Brooklyn and throughout our great city. As many of you know, I have served in the City Council for 12 years. I have my successor, Antonio Reynoso, the new council member in Williamsburg, Bushwick, and Ridgewood, Queens. I am honored to have represented the 34th Council District. I represented my community and fought for the issues that mattered most, not because they were of urgent matters, but because I lived them. As Deputy Borough President, I will continue to honor the entire borough of Brooklyn with those same experiences and voice. And along with our borough president, Eric Adams, who was committed to this particular forum. I want to thank our esteemed and distinguished lawyer, Martin Needleman from Brooklyn Legal Services Corp. A, who has stabilized for the last 40 years plus the community of Williamsburg and Bushwick and East New York and Bedford-Stuyvesant, because those are the neighborhoods that suffered most. Greenpoint. We cannot continue to say enough how it is lawyers like these who have stood in the forefront, in the battleground of representing families and cases that can go on for years. And it is not about teaching one family. It is about making sure that we empower a building, because an empowered building is an empowered block, and an empowered block is an empowered neighborhood. Brooklyn Tenants United is comprised of great organizations that fight for people and families that don't have voices. Brooklyn Housing Independence Project, BHIP. Brooklyn Corp. A, as I had mentioned. Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation. Fifth Avenue Committee. Flatbush Tenant Coalition, Housing Court Answers, Legal Services New York City, Brooklyn Programs, Make the Road New York, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, Pratt Area Community Council, St. Nick's Alliance. It's great having all of you here. My journey as an advocate has started, as I had said as a child, traduciendo por mi familia de la edad de 8 años, para dejarle saber al juez de 8 años de por qué estábamos en ese salón, en esa corte. De 8 años explicándole a mi madre lo que estaba tratando de explicarle el juez. De 8 años tratando de explicar lo que fue una injusticia y por qué nosotros teníamos que luchar por quedarnos en el apartamento a donde no teníamos ni un derecho porque era una casa de 3 familias. Y explicarle a mi madre, fuerte, con tanta fortaleza de que no sabía cómo explicarle al juez que teníamos que quedarnos ahí, porque tenía solamente 8 años. Al año, 9 años, y estábamos en el mismo frente del juez, contando la misma historia. ¿Cómo podemos dejarle saber y explicarle, exhortarle al juez que es el problema, quedarnos en esta casa es lo único que conocemos? Es importante que reconocemos que en la corte hay que tener traducción de profesionales, servicios que van a dar la oportunidad de justicia, porque la justicia no viene si usted no entiende en su propio idioma. Es importante y la clave es luchar por esos servicios. Que cuando Yolanda Coca llama a Diana Reina es porque ella sabe que la corte no está dando ese servicio. Es saber que nosotros tenemos un trabajo por la mayor de dejarle saber a una familia a dónde ir, que organizaciones como la que ustedes ven aquí existen y necesitan recursos para mantener esos servicios tan clave en nuestras comunidades. Que cuando haya una rezonificación, que se entienda que sin fondos para atraer lo que son esos servicios legales con abogados. No se puede tener lo que es una comunidad con salud preservada para que todo el mundo pueda disfrutar de lo que es una comunidad. No podemos dejarnos atrás y es por esto que este día está dedicado a ustedes. Entender de que nuestro gran juez está aquí para enseñarle lo que es ganar en la corte, justicia, para que ustedes puedan tener hogar y rufo sobre su cabeza, para su familia, para quedarse y mantenerse en su comunidad. Son 1/3 de las familias en la corte de vivienda que está afectando a niños. 1/3 de la población, que quiere decir que hay muchos más niños que están con esta experiencia traumatizados que adultos. Estamos hablando que más ancianos de tercera edad están sufriendo lo que es un caso en la corte sin conocer lo que es el idioma inglés o saber dónde ir a buscar servicios legales. Ese es el propósito de hacer este día tan grandioso. Le doy mi agradecimiento y es la primera vez, pero nunca la última, a donde esta casa se va a dedicar a enseñar, a educar, a empoderar lo que es el inquilino de Brooklyn. Muchas gracias. Que Dios me lo bendiga. Thank you, Your Honor. May God bless you.
Assemblyman Walter Mosley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to be very brief. I just got off the road from Albany, and it's a little joke we say sometimes amongst our colleagues that we live in a bipolar house. And for those who might not know, us in Assembly, the People's House, having to deal with our colleagues in the Senate, who have to deal with then our governor on the second floor, sometimes it might come off that we appear to live in a bipolar home. But I'm so pleased and blessed to be back in the People's House because this gives me strength as to why I've been elected to serve you in the New York State Assembly and why I've been chosen to be a part of a group of men and women who understand why we are there, why we are where we are today. I know that in her mock opening statement, the public advocate in her cause of claim was somewhat fictitious, but unfortunately was based in facts and substance. That equality does not live in landlord-tenant and housing court right now. That inequality, unfortunately, has become a permanent resident in housing court. Now, I don't say that to get any accolades because it's shameful, because we understand that injustice somewhere is a threat to justice everywhere, but when we're talking about injustice in a court of law, we're talking about the epitome of hypocrisy. We're talking about the purity of our justice system not being acknowledged. And that's why I'm here wholeheartedly supporting of the advocates, both named and those who are not named. With my colleagues, both at the local level, and our municipal level, and at the federal level. Because you understand that if justice can't be had in housing court, where can it be had? If justice can't be had by those who need it the most, where can it be had? So I just want to say to my fellow Brooklynites, and on behalf of my housing chairman, the Honorable Keith Wright, who brings his salutations, we are here not for the sake of just being here, but we are here because we don't want anyone to feel a level of insecurity, a level of injustice, a level of unfair playing ground when you go into housing court. Because I've been to housing court, and it's not a pleasant sight. And it's something that we need to rectify right here, right now. So, Your Honor, I want to thank you for allowing me to have these few words. But I know that our work is still to be done, that we have a yeoman's effort that needs to be taken up, but we also understand that the future of Brooklyn is in jeopardy. And if we don't understand that, then we might as well write our own death certificate. So I ask that you continue to support us, but more importantly, I demand of us to continue to support you. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
Excited to be here. Thank you, Judge. Mi gente, estoy aquí de parte de la comunidad de Williamsburg y Bushwick en Brooklyn, pero representando a Brooklyn entero. Un orgullo de poder pararme aquí hoy a ver el progreso que nosotros hemos hecho en ayudando a educar nuestras comunidades para asegurar que no se puedan desplazar de sus casas. Pues muchas gracias por darme la oportunidad de estar aquí con ustedes. Les quiero decir que mucha gente cree que el esfuerzo es el alquilar viviendas de bajo ingreso. Y no es eso. El esfuerzo que se tiene que hacer es ayudando a la gente que ahora mismo, en este momento, tienen su vivienda de bajo ingreso, apoyarlo a ellos para que se queden en su casa. Esa es la lucha que se necesita. I'll be quick to say it in English. It's just that I'm proud to be here to see the progress that we're making regarding educating our communities on housing court and what we should be doing. But also that we don't only look at housing as development. It's not just about building affordable housing, it's about preservation. And this is the way we do that. And that the focus shouldn't be solely on affordable housing. Let's build, build, build. Let's preserve, preserve, preserve. That is also valuable, and I just want to know I'm dedicated to that. And Judge, if you would allow me, I'd like to defer the rest of my time to my chair of Housing and Buildings in the City Council, Councilmember Jimani Williams. Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams, you're recognized.
May I proceed?
Sure.
Thank you, Judge. Hola, ¿cómo está? That's all I got. So, but I'm going to be brief. I'm very, very excited to be here. I want to thank Brooklyn BTU for putting this together. I got to give a special shout out to Flatbush Tenants Council because they're from my side. But most of the things have been said, and many people know before I was a council member, I did tenant advocacy, I did community organizing, I focused on affordable housing, and I know firsthand how bad housing court may be. And it bothers me that we say in this country that you have a right to counsel, but you really don't, because there are two places that doesn't come into play. One, when they're about to kick black and brown people out of the country, and two, when black and brown people on housing court are about to lose their homes, when they're about to be kicked out on the street, when people who cannot economically afford to defend themselves, and those two places that are so important, are critical to life and are critical to having a comfortable place to stay, you are not afforded a counsel. And that makes no sense, because landlords come with million-dollar firms and people who know this inside and out, and you come with a couple pieces of paper that don't even make sense, but that's all that you have, and you're trying to come against people who do. And then you don't have the resources that are even needed to provide the information so you can make some sense out of those two pieces of paper before you go inside. Now that is atrocious. And how we can say that this serves as some kind of justice system in the city of New York, in the state of New York, and in the country doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm so happy that we have this mock trial today. I hope the powers that be are watching and are paying attention, because I hope that we are as calm as we can right now with this mock trial, but I know that people understand anything that I'm involved in. If we can't make noise enough confined in these four walls, we are going to be in the street soon enough. We are going to be outside soon enough, and we're going to find something to shut down so that you guys will hear us. Thank you so much. And I want to recognize District Leader Rodney's Bishop.
Okay, the eloquence continue. You should know, members of the audience, we have a continued support from the 20th Senatorial District Director, Legal Counsel, the distinguished Jesse E. Hamilton III. Also, from the 42nd Assembly District, New York State Committeewoman District Leader, Ms. Rodney Bishop. Welcome. 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 Okay. Now we're ready to begin the trial against Brooklyn Housing. The Brooklyn Housing Court is charged with the following counts. 6 counts they are for this evening. Count 1, lack of adequate facilities to accommodate seniors and disabled people. Count 2, insufficient space to accommodate litigants. Count 3, deplorable physical facility owned by David Bistricer, who Mayor de Blasio has called one of New York's worst landlords. Count 4, little to no signage advising self-represented tenants where to go and what to do. Count 5, inadequate translation services. And count 6, insufficient resources to process tenant suits against their landlords as compared to eviction cases brought by landlords against tenants. Mr. Prosecutor, please call your first witness.
Good evening, Your Honor. My first witness is from the Brooklyn Tenant Coalition. I would like to call Ms. Mary Camus, a member of the Flatbush Tenant Coalition who will be testifying about the condition of the housing court. Please state your name and your experience in housing court.
Good evening. My name is Mary Camus. I am 65 years old. 2 weeks ago, I came to housing court for my case. I arrived at 8 a.m. in the morning. I waited outside in the cold in my wheelchair with my 2 grandchildren. By the time I reached, by the time I reached the front of the line, it was almost 9 a.m. I waited for the elevator, which was so crowded, it took 45 minutes to accommodate my wheelchair. After getting off the elevator, I couldn't figure out where to go or what to do because I didn't see any signs to help me.
So what did you do?
I asked someone where I should go, but they couldn't direct me. Finally, a court official showed up and told me what room I needed to go to. I then proceeded to the 4th floor, but the door to the courtroom was closed, so I waited outside in the crowded hallway. There were so many people I couldn't get close enough to the bulletin board to read my docket number.
So what happened after that?
Well, I waited until the pathway was clear to get close enough to see what my docket number was. Now, I had to use the bathroom badly, but the door was locked and no one knew where to get the key. I had no one to leave my grandchildren with to find out where the key was located or who to get it from. During this process, I had an accident. I felt so embarrassed. I again attempted to enter the courtroom, but it was still congested with so many people, and there was no room for my wheelchair. So I went back outside and waited in the hallway. I was concerned that I would not hear my name being called.
Were you able to get into the courtroom?
Well, yes, but my case was pushed back because I missed my name when it was originally called. and I ended up being there much longer than expected. That was my most recent experience in housing court. It was horrific.
So what would you like to see from the housing court?
I would like to see the court have a better procedure for seniors and the disabled so that it can be a more accessible space than we presently have. There needs to be a separate line for disabled and seniors. There needs to be more conspicuous signs in large, bold letters. Also, have an announcement or video about where and what to do and post it in the hallways, like at a doctor or dentist's office. Leave the handicapped accessible bathrooms unlocked, making them accessible to seniors, the handicapped, and people with small children. I understand that they lock the handicapped bathrooms so the judges can use them. At meetings on March 5th and March 20th, 2013, both Office of Court Administration and the court gave their word to make this better, but nothing has happened.
Mr. Prosecutor, one moment, please. Members of the audience and the jury, specifically the jury, please do your utmost to refrain from making any verbal gestures or reaction to the witnesses. Thank you. Mr. Prosecutor.
And what has your experience shown you?
Well, my experience shows that this building is too small and unfit for the needs of the public. We need an appropriate new building that is accessible for everyone. The city has to stop paying rent to David Bistricer, the owner of the current housing court building, who was on Mayor Bill de Blasio's worst landlords list when he was public advocate and is still currently on that list.
Who do you think is that for?
Well, the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, on October 19, 2012 and March 20th, 2013 told us they would find a better building for the housing court. We are still waiting, and the current lease is up for renewal in May of this year. We deserve better.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness, you're excused.
My second witness, as I may call my next witness, I would like to call Ms. Smith, who resides at Flatbush Garden. She will be testifying about how the city of New York, by allowing the court to remain in a present location year after year and doing business with some law. Ms. Smith, can you please state your name and exact address for the record?
Yes, my name is Ms. Smith. I live at 1234 Flatbush Avenue, apartment 5D, also known as Flatbush Gardens.
And who is your landlord at Flatbush Gardens?
Mr. David Bistricer.
And how has Mr. Bistricer kept your...
Not good. My apartment has cracked ceilings, defective floors, leaks, mold from the leaks, rodents, cockroaches. Tenants have been living in these conditions for months to years in some cases. He was on the public advocate Bill de Blasio's worst landlord list. The man is a slumlord.
Do you know if he owns any other property besides Flatbush Gardens?
Yes. He owns 141 Livingston Street, the housing court building.
Wait. So you're saying that Mr. Bistricer owns both Flatbush Gardens and Brooklyn Heights?
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay. Are the conditions at housing court any?
The housing court building is worse. The courtrooms are so small, there's nowhere to sit. The bathrooms are constantly out of order. I cannot believe the city would do business with a person like that. Shame on you, New York. Shame on you.
Thank you very much for your time, and you may step down. Your Honor, at this time, I would like to call the Department of Citywide Communication Service to the stand.
Decaf. Okay, order, please.
Please state your name for the record.
DCAS, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services.
And what exactly do you do for New York City?
We lease, purchase privately owned properties for the city use.
Do you look closely at who you lease property from and or does business with before long leases?
You could say that. You could say that. Yes.
Were you aware that the city has a lease of Mr. David Bistricer, the same man who was a public advocate, de Blasio worst landlord list, as he is the owner of the building, Brooklyn Housing Court?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe.
And are you aware the city is about to sign a new lease with Mr. David Bistricer for the building?
We were kind of hoping that it would be unnoticed.
Would the witness please speak into the microphone?
So you, the city, is about to enter a long-term contract to lease the housing court building with someone that the mayor called one of the worst landlords in New York. Can you explain why the city willing to normally give money to a person that mismanaged his property and his tenants?
Well, I don't know. I mean, yes, we contracted to him with the landlord. We contracted with him, but it seems like it was a good idea at the time. And well,
continue.
we just, at the moment through the process, we just keep renewing the lease.
Okay. Well, the tenants of Brooklyn hope that the mayor might reconsider entering into a long lease with someone that has called one of the worst landlords in New York City. Thank you. I have no further question for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Third witness.
I'd like to call my third witness, make the road. Ms. Gladys. Ms. Gladys, as my next witness I call, who will testify about her experience in housing court concerning language assessed? Ms. Gladys, please talk to us about the experience.
Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everyone. On el día febrero 14 de 2014, yo tenía una cita en la Corte de Vivienda de Brooklyn a las 9:30 de la mañana, con una relación a una demanda en contra de mi casero por falta de reparaciones. Por supuesto, tengo esposo y hijos, así que decidí llegar a corte bien temprano para poder volver a casa y preparar la comida de mi esposo y luego buscar a mis hijos de la escuela. Recuerdo llamar a mi esposo a las 8:30 de la mañana para dejarle saber que había llegado con una hora de anticipación para poder terminar temprano, si eso era posible.
¡A la corte! Le voy a hablar a mi esposo. Sí, él tiene que saber que yo llegué a la corte bien temprano. Hello, mi amor. Oye, dejé hecha la comida. Pasado a dejar a los niños a la escuela. Y yo de aquí voy a salir temprano. Ok, mi amor, no te preocupes, vamos a comer juntos. Ok, bye, mi amor.
Cuando llegué a la corte, fui directo al cuarto piso, donde mi caso sería llamado. Subí las escaleras y recuerdo estar muy confundida. No vi ningún cartel en español que explicara qué tengo que hacer y a dónde tengo que ir. No estaba segura si estaba en el lugar correcto o no.
Debí haber traído a mi hijo. No lo debí de haber llevado a la escuela. Me hubiera ayudado a traducir en inglés.
Mientras esperaba, sentada en la sala repleta de gente, recuerdo sentir que el día no iba a acabar. Y a un punto miré mi reloj y me percaté que ya eran las 10:30 de la mañana.
¡Ay! ¿Qué pasó aquí? Ya es muy tarde. No me atienden. ¡Ay!
Luego, un oficial me llamó. Yo contesté rápido, pensando que mi caso sería llamado. Pero el oficial sencillamente me dijo que seguiría esperando. Parece ser que lo único que quería hacer era confirmar que yo estaba presente. En otra hora pasó y entonces escuché mi nombre de nuevamente.
María Conchita Alonso. María.
La persona que me llamó mi nombre era un traductor, supuestamente. Estaba emocionada. Había esperado 3 horas en corte y finalmente mi día culminara. Y eso fue lo que yo pensé cuando el traductor me habló y me dijo, posiblemente iba a tener que esperar alrededor de 45 horas más para ser atendida. ¿Usted cree que sea posible eso? No.
María Conchita. Sí, mira, lo que pasa es que hay mucho trabajo y no podemos entrar. No, 45 minutos.
Yo tengo aquí desde la mañana.
I'm sorry, 45 minutos.
Luego de otra hora más, el traductor me llamó nuevamente. Finalmente pensé, pero claro, el traductor solo me llamó para decirme que la corte no iba a poder ver mi caso antes del receso del almuerzo de la 1 de la tarde. Así que tenía que volver luego del almuerzo a las 2:30 de la tarde. Recuerdo que ya estaba súper molesta.
Todo mi día está perdido. No va a venir temprano. ¿Qué va a pasar ahora? Voy a hablarle a mi amiga. Hola, Carmen. Ay, necesito que me hagas un favor, mira. Estoy aquí en la corte y ya tú sabes cómo es esto. Mira, necesito que vayas con mis hijos a la escuela. Te lo voy a agradecer. Gracias.
No fue hasta las 3 de la tarde, luego del almuerzo, que finalmente llamaron mi caso. Cuando le pregunté al traductor por qué esto se había tomado tanto tiempo, me dijo que no había suficientes traductores para atender el volumen de casos. Me sentí devaluada porque no hablo inglés.
So, you believe that the Brooklyn Housing Court devalued you because you don't speak English?
Sí, la Corte no me brindó un servicio de traducción rápido y efectivo, de modo que así, a eso yo le llamo devaluado.
You did get an interpreter, though, right?
Sí, pero tuve que esperar 6 horas y media para que me llamen mi caso por no hablar inglés. Además, yo no sabía que tenía que registrarme con el oficial de la sala cuando llegué en la mañana. Los documentos que yo no tenía no eran en español y no había carteles en español en ningún lado explicando lo que yo tenía que hacer. Si yo hubiese estado cerca del oficial cuando me llamó mi nombre a las 10:30 de la mañana, es posible que no se hubiesen enterado que yo estaba ahí.
No further questions, Your Honor, for this witness. You're going to
Gracias.
Your excuse.
Your Honor, I'm going to call to the stand Be here at this time.
Be here.
Next witness, Angel Martinez?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Who will be testifying about the confusion nature of Brooklyn Housing Court and how there is no information to help tenants? Please state your name and why you're here today.
My name is Angel Martinez. I live in Bushwick. I received out-of-order notice from my landlord 2 weeks ago, along with the other rent stabilized tenants in my building. I was scared and panicked because I know that if I lock my apartment, there is nowhere for me to go in Bushwick. The only thing I know was that I had to get to the court in 5 days.
So, what did you do?
I went the next day. I spent 40 minutes online, tried to get into the building, not knowing what to do. I spoke with another tenant who told me to go to the second floor. After the long wait, I was afraid I was late, but there was a long line there as well. I didn't see any instructions, and no one was around to give me direction. There were some signs on the wall, but they were hard to see, and I was afraid to lose my place in line.
So what did you do?
I finally got to a window and was told I should return a week. There was no clear instruction except to chop up. A week later, I went through the same process. I finally arrived at the courtroom. No one mentioned that I needed to check in, and there was no room in the courtroom to sit down. I tried to ask an officer a question, but his response was, "I'm not a lawyer. Read the calendar." I didn't even know where the calendar was. And when I finally found this, the letter was so small, I could barely read it. I watched others try to get information, and the officer just ignored them.
So what do you think the court expects of you?
I guess the court expects everyone to have a lawyer who can answer their questions, but I didn't see many tenants with lawyers. In fact, that all day, I didn't see any tenants with lawyers, but every landlord had one.
So what about others in your building experience?
I brought my neighbor, Kathy, with me to the trial. She was an even worse shame than me because she can't speak or read any English. When we went to the court the second time, the landlord's lawyer kept putting paper in front of her and telling her to sign. It was a good thing I was there too, because I told her that she should let me read there first. The paper said that she agreed to leave by the end of the month, I told her not to sign, and the lawyer started screaming at me that it was none of my business. If I hadn't been so mad, I probably could have left, but I just stood there. I yelled back.
Have you brought anyone else with you today?
I also brought my neighbor from the second floor. She had a different court day, and I was not there to help her. She was totally scared by the lawyer and didn't know her rights. She broke out in tears and finally signed the paper, and now she has lost her apartments.
So what do you want from this trial today?
There had to be a way to protect tenants. The court was set up to protect tenants from harassment, but without information, tenants become victims. The court should be prosecuted for harassment and abuse. If you want, I can bring 40 more tenants from my community.
And how should it be changed?
In my opinion, the aforementioned officers need training on how to treat and respect the public. Officers must be trained to provide information to all parties in the courtroom if requesting before the cases begin. Well-trained officers cordially will assist you by saying, how can I help you? Or work with you to the bulletin board and tell you the courtroom where you want to go, for example.
Thank you for your testimony, Your Honor. I have no further questions for the court. Our fifth witness,
members of the audience and jurors, you were cautioned before, so please hold your emotions until we've concluded. Mr. Prosecutor.
I'd like to call my fifth witness today, Your Honor, Matt. Your Honor, the prosecutor would like to call his found witness, Juanita, to talk about how the court is based towards evictions and doesn't help tenants get repairs. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Juanita Do.
And what do you intend to testify today about?
I wish to let the court know that the Brooklyn Housing Court unfairly prioritized evictions over the ability of tenants to get repairs. Everyone knows housing court is where landlords bring tenants to sue them for rent or try to evict them. But the court is supposed to be for tenants too. It is a place to seek repairs of the bad conditions in their apartments, and I want to describe for us how unfair and one-sided Brooklyn Housing Court has become.
Have you ever been to housing court before, Juanita?
Yes, I have, last fall, when I had a problem with a leak in my ceiling.
Can you please tell the jury about your experience?
Well, for years, my ceiling has leaked whenever it rained, but last fall it got worse. My ceiling started to collapse and fall into my living room, and the mold that had been in my walls started coming out into the room. My landlord knew about the problem because I'd been asking him to fix the roof for months, but he never responded. So I went to housing court and filed an HP case to get the court to order him to fix it. My experience with it was terrible. Every time I went to court, I had to wait hours, while my landlord's lawyer handled all of his other cases in the other courtrooms before coming to argue on my case, and the court wouldn't do anything to get him down there quicker. And after all that waiting, the case would usually just be rescheduled. Even though I had pictures, the court insisted on ordering an official inspection before they would hear my case. So I had to come back weeks later. Then, even after the inspection, the court said that we still couldn't do a trial because trials only happen in the afternoons, and the next available afternoon date was 2 months later.
Why did it take them so long to schedule you?
I learned that while the housing court has 14 different courtrooms for cases brought by landlords, it only has 1 courtroom for cases brought by tenants or the city to have apartments repaired. That means that tenants often have to wait a long time to get their cases heard. My neighbors, who have a worse building than mine, tried to bring a 7A case to have the landlord replaced by an administrator who might actually make the repairs. The law says that in that kind of case, a hearing must be held within 5 days. But that doesn't regularly happen, and my neighbors had to wait several months before they could get a hearing on their case. After they finally had a trial, the judge decided not to appoint an administrator and just gave the landlord more time to fix the problems. I don't think he ever did, though.
Unbelievable. What conclusion, if any, did you draw from these observations?
It is clear to me that the housing court cares more about making the experience easier for landlords and their attorneys than tenants with serious problems in their apartments, and ignores laws that are supposed to give those tenants rights.
Thank you, Juanita. I have no further questions. Your Honor, the prosecution rests and asks that the case be sent to the jury at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Housing Court, do you have anything to say for yourself? Your silence is noted. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you've heard testimony from the prosecution about how the current housing court facilities are inadequate. You also heard that the city is about to enter into a long-term lease for the same inadequate facilities with David Bistricer. The same man, Mayor de Blasio, has called one of New York City's worst landlords. We have also heard testimony that the Brooklyn Housing Court fails our citizens who do not speak English by not having nearly enough translators. In addition, the Brooklyn Housing Court is a confusing maze with no information. Finally, we heard how tenants are unable to get repairs done with only 1 court to hear repair cases, while landlords get 14 courts to evict tenants. I must admit that I find this testimony very troubling, but it is up to you, members of the jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to go back and decide whether the Brooklyn Housing Court is guilty of all that is and has been accused of. Jury foreman. Jury
Your
number
Honor.
1. Proceed.
Your Honor, we do not need any time to deliberate.
Well, I shouldn't be smiling. Great. Please, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, tell this court whether you find Housing Court guilty or innocent of the crime stated today.
We, the jury, found the towns guilty of all charges,
Okay. Members of the jury, you've made your decision. And as far as this court is concerned, Brooklyn Housing Court is absolutely, definitely guilty as charged. Yes. Order, just one brief announcement. One brief announcement. All of us extend sincere thanks to Merv Mutu Alam, Chief of Staff for Assemblyman Felix Ortiz. Thank you. Thank you, Alam. And ladies and gentlemen, before we are dispatched, I'm going to use the privilege I have as the judge here this evening to say that all the witnesses were eloquent. Don't you agree? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Your presence maintain order this evening. Thank you. And Mr. Prosecutor, you've done a fine job. But please, I'm going to ask you to truly express your love specifically. I mean, this witness testimony was so moving. I fought all the instincts in my being to stay as judicial as I could. Angel Martinez. I say that, and I hope you notice, ladies and gentlemen, that English is not his first language. And he mastered it. Angel Martinez, keep on keeping on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
What is a Jude?
Woo, woo.